was a quiet morning in the small town of Clearwater. The streets were lined with maple trees, their golden leaves swaying gently in the early autumn breeze. Children waited near the corner for the big yellow school bus to arrive, laughing, chasing each other, and holding their colorful backpacks. Parents stood nearby, talking softly and sipping coffee from paper cups. Everything felt safe and ordinary, just like every other school day. Officer Mark Davis parked his patrol car near the curb and stepped out with his loyal K-9 partner, Rex. Rex was a large German shepherd with alert brown eyes and a calm but powerful presence. He had been with Mark for 4 years, trained in search, rescue, and detection. To the people of Clearwater, Rex wasn't just a dog, he was a local hero. Kids loved him and parents trusted him. Mark often brought Rex to school bus stops as part of a community safety program. He believed that a police presence, even a friendly one, made children feel more secure. As the bus turned the corner with its familiar rumble, Mark smiled and greeted the children. "Good morning, everyone. How's my favorite group doing today?" he asked cheerfully. The kids waved at him and a few ran forward to pet Rex. The dog wagged his tail gently, letting them touch his back. Mark always admired how patient Rex was with children. He never barked at them, never got nervous. But this morning, something felt different. While Mark was chatting with a mother about the new safety fence at the park, Rex suddenly lifted his head. His ears twitched. His nose began to move rapidly, sniffing the air. His body grew still and the friendly tail stopped wagging. Mark noticed immediately. Years of working together had made him familiar with every change in Rex's behavior. "What is it, boy?" Mark whispered, following the dog's gaze. Rex's eyes were fixed on a man standing near the back of the crowd. The man looked ordinary at first glance. He wore jeans, a gray jacket, and a baseball cap. He had his hands in his pockets and seemed to be waiting for someone. But something about him didn't fit. He wasn't smiling like the other parents. He wasn't talking to anyone. He kept looking at the children, then at the bus, then back again as if measuring the distance. Rex gave a low, quiet growl. It wasn't loud enough for everyone to hear, but it sent a chill through Mark. The officer placed a hand on Rex's leash and scanned the man again, this time more carefully. The man noticed Mark's eyes on him and shifted uneasily. Then as the bus doors opened and children began climbing in, the man took a small step forward. "Hey," one of the kids shouted happily, thinking the man might be someone's uncle or neighbor. But Rex barked suddenly, sharp, loud, and commanding. The entire group froze. The bark echoed down the street, startling even the bus driver. Mark held Rex firmly but didn't silence him. He trusted his dog's instincts more than anything. The man stopped, his face pale. "Sir," Mark called out. "Can I help you with something?" The man hesitated, then smiled weakly. "Oh, no problem, officer. I'm just here to pick up my niece," he said in a casual tone that didn't match his nervous eyes. Mark frowned. He knew most of the families in the area, but he had never seen this man before. "Which one is your niece?" he asked. The man pointed vaguely toward the group of kids. That little girl with the red backpack," he said. The girl he pointed at turned around, confused. "I don't know him," she said softly. Her mother, standing nearby, stepped forward quickly and put her arm around her daughter. Rex growled again, louder this time. His body was tense, his gaze locked on the stranger. "Sir, I'm going to need to see some identification," Mark said firmly, taking a step closer. The man's smile faded. It's in my car," he muttered. "That's fine," Mark replied calmly. "Let's walk over together and get it." The man's shoulders tightened. He glanced at the bus door again, then turned as if to leave. Rex barked once more, lunging slightly forward, teeth bared just enough to warn, not threaten. The man froze. Mark could feel the leash trembling in his hand. Rex was absolutely certain something was wrong. "Stay where you are," Mark ordered. His tone was calm but sharp. Parents began pulling their children closer. The bus driver shut the doors, waiting for Mark's signal. The man looked trapped. He tried to laugh it off, saying, "This is a big misunderstanding, officer." But his voice shook. Sweat formed on his forehead. He slowly reached into his pocket, and Mark tensed instantly. "Hands up where I can see them," Mark said quickly. The man stopped, raising both hands. Within moments, another patrol car arrived at the scene. Officer Jenkins, Mark's partner, stepped out. Mark nodded toward the man. "He says he's picking up his niece. Nobody here knows him," he explained. Jenkins took over questioning while Mark kept Rex beside him. The children whispered to each other in confusion. Rex's eyes didn't leave the man and his body stayed stiff, tail straight and unmoving. The man finally produced an ID card, but something about it didn't look right. The photo seemed older, and the name didn't match any records of families in the area. Jenkins handed it to Mark, who quietly scanned it. "Sir, can you tell me your address?" he asked. The man stammered. It's on the card," he said quickly. "Please say it," Mark replied. He hesitated again, struggling to recall it. Jenkins gave Mark a look. This wasn't good. Just then, Rex started sniffing around the man's backpack, which was lying on the ground beside him. His nose pressed against the zipper and he began whining. Mark knelt down and unzipped it. Inside, he found a small camera, a notebook, and a pair of gloves. "What's this for?" Mark asked. The man didn't answer. His face went pale and his breathing grew shallow. Mark's instincts, along with Rex's reaction, told him something serious was going on. He carefully handed the bag to Jenkins and took the man by the arm. "Sir, I'm detaining you for questioning," he said, keeping his voice firm and professional. Parents started whispering anxiously. "What's happening?" one mother asked. Mark looked at them calmly and said, "Everything's under control. Please keep your children back." Rex stood guard beside the bag, his nose twitching as if he smelled something more. The bus didn't leave that morning. Officers checked the area while others comforted the frightened children. Some parents thanked Mark quietly, realizing how close something terrible might have happened. When they took the man to the police car, Rex let out one final bark, as if to say the job wasn't finished yet. Mark gently patted his partner's neck and whispered, "Good work, buddy. You just saved someone today." That morning, no one could have imagined that a simple school bus stop would turn into the start of a major investigation. But Mark knew one thing for sure. Rex never barked without a reason. And whatever that reason was, it was only the beginning of something much bigger. After the man was taken to the side, the morning at the bus stop slowly began to settle again. Parents whispered among themselves. Children clung to their backpacks, and the bus driver waited quietly, unsure what to do next. Officer Mark Davis stood near his patrol car, speaking softly into his radio. Rex sat beside him, alert but calm, his eyes never leaving the man they had just stopped. The air was still, but something heavy lingered, something that made everyone uneasy. Mark finished his radio call and looked down at his partner. "You did good, boy," he said quietly, patting Rex on the head. Rex wagged his tail once but kept his gaze fixed forward, nose twitching as if he could still smell danger nearby. When the backup car arrived, Officer Jenkins got out, holding a clipboard and a body camera. "We're going to question him properly," Jenkins said. "Let's find out who he really is." The man stood near the police car, shifting from one foot to another. His jacket looked worn and his cap cast a shadow over his face. He looked nervous, too nervous for someone claiming a simple mistake. Mark decided to start calmly. "Sir," he said, "you said you were picking up your niece. What's her name?" The man hesitated. Megan," he said after a moment. Mark looked back at the group of kids. "Any of you named Megan?" he asked. The children shook their heads. One mother stepped forward and said, "There's no Megan in this group." "I know all these families," the man quickly added. "Oh, maybe it's another stop. I must have got the wrong one." He tried to smile again, but it looked forced. Mark folded his arms. "Then why were you about to board the bus?" The man shrugged. "I wanted to check if she was on it." Rex gave a short bark, sensing the tension rising. Jenkins stepped forward, saying gently, "Sir, please take your hands out of your pockets." The man obeyed, though reluctantly. His hands were trembling slightly. Jenkins looked at Mark and nodded. They both knew this was no ordinary misunderstanding. They asked the man to sit in the patrol car while they verified his information. As he sat, Rex paced around the car once, nose moving in quick sniffs. Mark had seen that look many times before. Rex was searching for something, following a scent only he could detect. Inside the bag, they had already found a camera and a small notebook, but now Jenkins noticed something else. The notebook had tiny sketches, maps drawn by hand. One showed the layout of the bus stop, another showed a nearby park. There were circles around certain areas with times written beside them. "Mark," Jenkins said quietly, This looks like he's been watching them for days. Mark's jaw tightened. Call dispatch. Tell them to run his ID through the database again. I want every detail. While Jenkins made the call, Mark crouched beside Rex. Can you find anything else, boy? He whispered. Rex sniffed around the bench near where the man had been standing. His nose brushed against a plastic water bottle left behind. He sat down suddenly, signaling assent. Mark picked up the bottle with gloves and placed it in an evidence bag. Parents began approaching slowly. One of the mothers asked, Officer, is everything okay? Should we take the children home? Mark gave a small, reassuring smile. Everything's fine, ma'am. You can take them home for now. We'll make sure everything's safe before letting the bus move again. The driver nodded, and one by one, parents guided their children away. The once cheerful morning had turned into a scene filled with police lights and quiet whispers. A few minutes later, Jenkins hung up his radio and looked serious. The ID's real, he said, but it belongs to someone who reported it lost 6 months ago. The man's name isn't Thomas Greer, it's Daniel Hayes. He has a record. Mark's eyes narrowed. What kind of record? Jenkins hesitated. Suspicious activity near schools. 2 complaints filed, but no charges. Mark took a deep breath. All right. Let's bring him in. When they opened the car door, Daniel looked up, trying to appear calm. What's all this for? I haven't done anything wrong, Mark replied steadily. We're just going to ask you a few questions downtown. Daniel tried to stand, but paused when Rex stepped closer, eyes locked on him. The dog's low growl made him freeze. Mark guided him toward the second patrol car while Jenkins collected the rest of the man's belongings. As they drove to the station, Mark couldn't shake the image of the little girl with the red backpack, the one the man had pointed at. He wondered what would have happened if Rex hadn't reacted in time. His hand rested on Rex's back, feeling the steady heartbeat beneath the thick fur. You've saved lives before, partner, he said quietly. But I think this time it might be more than we know. At the station, Daniel sat across from the detectives in a small gray room. He kept insisting he was just waiting for his niece. But when they asked for the niece's full name, he said he didn't remember her last name. The more he spoke, the less sense it made. Outside the room, Mark and Jenkins reviewed the camera footage from the bus stop. One frame showed Daniel standing across the street long before the bus arrived, watching. Another showed him reaching into his pocket right before Rex barked. What do you think he was planning? Jenkins asked quietly. Mark sighed. Something he doesn't want to admit. But we'll find out. Later that afternoon, a call came from the lab. The fingerprints from the camera matched those found near an old case in another town, a missing child case that had never been solved. The air in the room grew still as the news sank in. Are you serious? Jenkins asked. Yes, the voice on the other end confirmed. We're notifying the FBI. This man might be connected to other cases. Mark turned to look at Rex, who lay quietly near the desk. His partner had done it again. What had started as a routine patrol had just become the opening to something far deeper. That night, after the paperwork was done, Mark brought Rex to the empty parking lot behind the station. He threw a ball and Rex ran joyfully after it, his tail wagging. Mark smiled, though his thoughts were heavy. You always know before anyone else, he said softly. Maybe it's instinct. Maybe it's heart. But you always know. As Rex returned with the ball in his mouth, Mark knelt beside him and whispered, Tomorrow, we're going to find out who that man really is. And we're going to find out why you stopped him today. In that quiet moment under the dim streetlight, it wasn't just a police officer and his dog. It was a team that trusted each other completely. Neither of them knew that their discovery would soon draw the attention of federal agents, and that this case would uncover truths far more shocking than anyone in Clearwater could have imagined. But for now, the town was safe, the children were home, and one K9 dog had once again proven that heroes come in all shapes and sizes, even with paws and a wagging tail. The next morning started early for Officer Mark Davis. The events from yesterday still echoed in his mind. The man at the bus stop, Rex's sudden alert, and the strange bag filled with maps and pictures. Something about it didn't sit right with him. He had been a police officer for over a decade, and he had learned that when a dog like Rex reacted that strongly, it meant danger was closer than anyone realized. When Mark entered the station, Jenkins was already there, staring at a computer screen filled with case files. Morning, Mark greeted, placing his coffee down. Morning, Jenkins said quietly. You need to see this. He turned the monitor toward Mark. On the screen was a list of missing children. 5 girls from 3 nearby towns, all between the ages of 7 and 10. Each case had gone cold months ago with no clear leads. But something connected them now. Guess whose name came up in the database last night, Jenkins said. Mark's heart sank. Daniel Hayes? Jenkins nodded. FBI confirmed he was on their watch list. They just never caught him doing anything concrete. Until now, Mark leaned closer. So he's connected to those cases? They're not saying for sure yet, Jenkins replied. But they're sending agents to interview him this afternoon. They said your K9 caught their attention. Mark looked at Rex lying near his desk, calm as always. You hear that, buddy? He said with a soft smile. We've got company. By the time the FBI team arrived, the small-town police station felt different. People spoke quietly in the hallways and reporters had started gathering outside. Agent Sarah Collins, a sharp, composed woman in her 40s, entered with 2 others. She greeted Mark with a firm handshake. Officer Davis, I've heard a lot about you and your partner, she said, glancing at Rex. That was good work yesterday. You might have just broken a big case. Mark nodded. We just did what we always do. Rex saw something I didn't. Agent Collins smiled slightly. Dogs like him have instincts even our best agents don't. I'd like you both to sit in on the interrogation, if you're comfortable. Of course, Mark said. Inside the gray interview room, Daniel Hayes sat with his arms folded. He looked calmer than before but still avoided everyone's eyes. The agents set up their files and began their questions. Daniel, Agent Collins began, you were seen near the Clearwater Elementary bus stop yesterday morning. You said you were waiting for your niece. We checked. There's no niece and you have no family in this area. Would you like to explain that? Daniel shrugged, his eyes fixed on the table. Maybe I was mistaken. Maybe it was the wrong stop. You also had photos of young girls in your bag, she continued. Why? They were for a project, he said quickly. I take pictures. I like photography. Collins leaned forward. Photographs taken outside schools? Daniel didn't answer. Rex, sitting quietly beside Mark, suddenly lifted his head. His nose moved slightly, sniffing the air. His tail stiffened. Mark noticed right away. Rex was picking up a familiar scent. The same smell from yesterday. The faint trace of something in Daniel's jacket. Collins noticed too. What's he reacting to? She asked. Something familiar, Mark replied. Maybe the same odor from the bag. Search the jacket, Collins ordered one of her agents. They carefully checked the pockets and found a small key. It was old, rusty, and had a faded number etched into it. 14B. What's this key for, Daniel? Collins asked. Daniel looked up sharply. I don't know. Must have been in there for a while. Collins didn't believe him. She turned to Mark. You think Rex can help us trace this scent? Mark nodded. He can try. A few minutes later, they brought Rex outside to the police lot where Daniel's old car had been towed. Rex sniffed around the driver's seat, the floor mats, and then the trunk. He barked twice and pawed at the floor of the trunk. Mark opened it carefully. Beneath the carpet layer, they found a hidden compartment. Inside was a small box filled with letters, photographs, and another notebook. This just got serious, Collins said. Back inside, they opened the box. The letters were written by someone with a shaky hand, messages to a person named M. Each letter mentioned meeting places, bus routes, and schools. It wasn't hard to see what it meant. Collins looked up from the papers. This is evidence of planned abductions. He's been scouting towns for months. Mark felt a cold chill run through him. Rex was right to stop him. He was planning something for that morning. Daniel's expression changed when he saw what they had found. His calm mask began to crack. You can't prove anything, he said loudly. Collins didn't respond. She simply gathered the letters and said, You've already proven enough by being there. Later that afternoon, the FBI called in their forensic team to search Daniel's car and apartment. Mark and Rex accompanied them. When they reached the apartment complex, it was quiet, almost too quiet. The building manager recognized Daniel right away. He rented Unit 14B, the man said. Didn't stay home much, though. Always kept the blinds closed. Mark exchanged a look with Collins. That number on the key, he said. They opened the door carefully. The room was dim, filled with stacks of newspapers and old photographs. There was a faint smell of chemicals and Rex's body stiffened immediately. He began sniffing around. moving toward a small storage closet at the back. He barked once, short and sharp. Inside the closet, agents found another locked box. The key fit perfectly. When they opened it, they discovered flash drives, GPS trackers, and files labeled with town names and dates. On one of the drives, they found surveillance videos from different playgrounds and schools. The evidence was overwhelming. Collins sighed, shaking her head. If your K9 hadn't reacted yesterday, he might have been out again today. Who knows how many more victims there would have been. Mark patted Rex's back, whispering, "Good job, partner. You stopped something terrible." By evening, the FBI released a statement confirming the arrest of a suspect linked to multiple missing children cases. News crews surrounded the police station, reporters asking for interviews. Mark declined politely. "It wasn't me," he told one journalist. "It was Rex. He's the real hero." That night, Mark returned home exhausted. Rex lay beside the couch, eyes half closed but still alert. Mark sat quietly for a while, watching his partner rest. The image of the children at the bus stop came back to him, their laughter, their bright faces, and the moment it all could have gone wrong. He reached down and scratched behind Rex's ears. "You knew before anyone else, didn't you?" he said softly. "You always do." Rex lifted his head slightly as if understanding and placed his paw on Mark's arm. For Mark, it wasn't just another case. It was proof that instinct, trust, and partnership could change lives. And though the investigation was far from over, he knew one thing with absolute certainty. Because of one dog's sharp nose and loyal heart, a tragedy had been stopped before it even began. And somewhere in that quiet night, as the news spread across the country, the small town of Clearwater slept safely once again, unaware that their true guardian was a four-legged hero lying peacefully beside his officer, ready to serve again when morning came. The next day, Clearwater was filled with quiet tension. News vans had started parking outside the police station. Reporters wanted answers. Neighbors whispered to each other, and every parent in town held their children a little closer. The story about the canine dog who stopped a man from boarding a school bus had spread fast. But what no one knew yet was how big the discovery really was. Officer Mark Davis sat in a small meeting room with Agent Sarah Collins and Officer Jenkins. Papers, photographs, and files were spread across the table. The FBI's evidence team had worked all night, sorting through everything found in Daniel Hayes' apartment. Mark rubbed his tired eyes while Rex rested on the floor beside him, eyes half open but alert, ready for another long day. "Here's what we know," Agent Collins began, her tone serious. "Daniel Hayes is not working alone. We found encrypted files that mention other names, people who were helping him. The FBI has been tracking a small ring involved in child trafficking across 3 states. Hayes was one of their main watchers." Mark's stomach turned. So he wasn't just acting on his own? "No," Collins said. "He was scouting schools, taking photos, gathering information, and sending it to someone else. And thanks to Rex, we caught him before he could make his next move." Mark looked down at Rex, who wagged his tail slightly, sensing his handler's attention. "You did good, boy," Mark whispered. Collins continued, "There's more. The GPS trackers in his box matched several old case locations. The missing girls' families might finally get answers." She paused, her eyes softening. "We might even be able to bring some of them home." Jenkins leaned forward. "Do we know how many people were involved?" "Not yet," Collins said. "But Hayes was in contact with at least 3 others. We're tracing phone calls and financial records now." Mark took a deep breath. "What happens next?" "We bring them all in," she said firmly. "And we start today." The plan was set quickly. The FBI would lead the raids and the local police would assist. Rex was assigned to go with Mark and Collins. They needed him for scent tracking in one of the suspected hideouts. By noon, the team was on the road. They drove out of Clearwater toward an abandoned farmhouse about 40 miles away. It had been mentioned in one of Hayes' notes. The house sat at the edge of a thick forest, quiet and forgotten, with broken windows and a rusted gate. Mark stepped out of the vehicle, tightening Rex's harness. The dog's ears twitched, nose already working. "Easy, boy," Mark whispered. "Find them." Rex moved forward, sniffing the air. He stopped near the porch, sniffed again, then barked once, a short, focused sound. Collins signaled her team. "Move in." The agents entered carefully, flashlights cutting through the dim, dusty air. The house smelled of damp wood and chemicals. Papers and old furniture lay scattered everywhere. Rex led Mark through the hallway and stopped at a closed door near the back. He growled softly, then pawed at the floor. "There's someone inside," Mark whispered. Collins nodded and motioned for her team to open the door. The moment it swung open, the light from their flashlights hit something unexpected. Computers, files, and boxes filled with clothing and personal items. On the table were printed photos of missing children, including the same ones from Hayes' notebook. Collins spoke quietly into her radio. "We've found their main hub." Rex suddenly barked again, this time louder, pulling Mark toward the back of the room. There was a small basement door partly hidden under a carpet. Collins's team moved fast, opening it carefully. A narrow staircase led down into the dark. The air was cold and heavy. Rex growled again, refusing to move at first, then slowly descended, Mark right behind him. In the basement, the team found more boxes, a computer server, and several hard drives. But what stopped everyone was a large corkboard on the wall, covered in photos, dates, and maps connecting different towns. Mark stared at it, realizing what they had stumbled upon. "This is bigger than we thought," he said softly. "They've been planning this for years." Collins nodded grimly. "And we just shut down their main operation." As evidence was collected, Rex sat beside Mark, watching everything calmly. An agent walked over and said, "We just found a hidden folder on one of the computers. It has lists of children marked as targets. The next one scheduled was from Clearwater." Mark felt his heart sink. "That's our town," he said quietly. "They were coming back." Collins looked at him. "If your dog hadn't reacted that morning, that plan might have gone ahead today." Mark knelt beside Rex, rubbing his neck gently. "You saved her," he said softly, thinking of the little girl with the red backpack. "You saved them all." By evening, the operation had turned into a major bust. The FBI arrested 2 more suspects connected to Hayes, one in another town and one at a warehouse near the state line. The files from the farmhouse were enough to close several open cases. The news spread quickly. Law enforcement had dismantled a dangerous network thanks to a canine's instincts. That night, when Mark returned home, he sat quietly on his porch. The stars shone dimly over Clearwater, and the streets were peaceful again. Rex lay at his feet, resting after a long day. Mark looked down and said softly, "You don't even know how many lives you changed today." His phone buzzed. It was Agent Collins. "Mark," she said, her voice calm but warm, "we just got confirmation. 2 of the missing girls were found alive, both connected to Hayes' notes. The evidence from the farmhouse led us to them." Mark closed his eyes, relief washing over him. "That's the best news I've heard all year," he said quietly. "You and Rex made this possible," she replied. "The Bureau wants to officially recognize him. They'll send an invitation soon." When the call ended, Mark looked at Rex again. The dog lifted his head slightly, as if sensing that something good had happened. Mark smiled and whispered, "They're safe, buddy. You did it." Rex wagged his tail once and rested his head on Mark's boot. The porch light flickered gently, and for the first time in days, Mark felt the heavy weight of worry lift from his chest. Somewhere in the quiet town, parents tucked their children into bed, unaware of the danger that had once been just a breath away. And as the night grew still, a loyal canine dog slept soundly, his job done for now, but always ready, always watching, always protecting. Mark knew that tomorrow would bring more questions, more interviews, and maybe even awards. But none of that mattered. What mattered was that Rex's instincts had saved innocent lives. It reminded Mark of something his old training officer once told him. "A good cop listens. A great cop listens to his dog." And tonight, in that peaceful silence, Mark was simply grateful that he had listened. A few weeks had passed since the day Rex stopped the stranger at the school bus stop, but the memory of that morning was still fresh in everyone's heart. The small town of Clearwater had gone back to its peaceful routine. Children laughed again at bus stops, parents smiled a little more easily, and people waved whenever Officer Mark Davis and Rex passed by. Yet under that calm surface there was a deep sense of gratitude. Everyone knew how close they had come to a tragedy, and everyone knew who had saved them. The FBI had officially closed the investigation, confirming that the evidence Rex uncovered led to the arrest of several dangerous people across 3 states. 2 missing girls had been reunited with their families, and more cases were being reopened thanks to the clues found in Daniel Hayes' apartment. What started as one dog's warning bark had turned into a rescue that stretched across hundreds of miles. One bright Saturday morning, Clearwater's mayor called for a community gathering at the town park. It wasn't a normal event. It was a ceremony to honor Rex and Officer Mark for their bravery. The entire town came together. Parents brought flowers, children held handmade signs, and local musicians played soft tunes in the background. Mark stood near the stage, dressed neatly in his police uniform. Rex sat proudly by his side, wearing a shiny new collar with a small silver tag that read, Service K9, Clearwater Police Department. The sunlight bounced gently off the metal pinned to Mark's chest. When the mayor stepped up to the microphone, her voice was filled with warmth. We are gathered here today to celebrate not just bravery, but the power of instinct, loyalty, and love, she began. Officer Mark Davis and his partner Rex saved lives. They stopped danger before it could reach our children.
And for that, Clearwater owes them more than words. The crowd applauded, and many people wiped away quiet tears.
The children from the bus stop stood in a line holding a banner that said, Thank you, Rex, in big, colorful letters. The mayor smiled and continued. Rex reminded us that heroes don't always wear capes or badges. Sometimes they walk on 4 legs and wag their tails. Everyone laughed softly and clapped again. Mark felt a lump in his throat. He looked down at Rex, who was sitting calmly, looking at the children as if he understood every word. When the mayor handed over a small golden medal for Rex, the crowd cheered. Mark crouched beside his partner and gently placed the medal on his collar. You earned this, buddy, he said quietly. Rex wagged his tail and licked Mark's hand, making the children giggle. After the ceremony, people surrounded them. Parents thanked Mark again and again. Some even brought treats and toys for Rex. The little girl with the red backpack, the one the man had pointed at that morning, walked up shyly with her mother. She held out a small drawing. It showed Rex standing in front of the school bus with a bright blue sky and smiling faces around him. At the bottom, in shaky handwriting, it said, My hero. Mark took the drawing with gentle hands. This is beautiful, he said softly. Thank you. He handed the picture to Rex, who sniffed it curiously, making the girl laugh. Her mother's voice trembled slightly as she said, I don't have enough words to thank you. If that dog hadn't been there that day. She stopped, tears filling her eyes. Mark nodded kindly. Rex just did what he was trained to do, he said. But I'm glad he was there. That evening, after the celebration, Mark drove Rex to their favorite quiet spot, a small hill overlooking Clearwater Lake. It was their place to unwind after long days. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. Rex ran around freely for a while, chasing the wind and barking at ducks that flew overhead. Mark sat on the grass smiling as he watched his partner play. When Rex finally came back and sat beside him, Mark spoke softly. You know, buddy, I've been thinking about all the times you've saved lives. But this one feels different. You didn't just protect people today. You changed everything. Rex looked at him with those deep, intelligent eyes, tilting his head as if trying to understand. Mark chuckled and continued, They're calling you a hero now. You got your medal, your treats, and your picture in the paper. But you know what? None of that matters to you, does it? You just care that everyone's safe. Rex barked once, as if agreeing. Mark leaned back, watching the reflection of the sky and the water. Sometimes I wonder how many dangers you've smelled that I never noticed, he said quietly. You trust your instincts without question. I think that's what makes you so special. He paused, remembering that first bark the moment everything had changed. That sound had saved lives, stopped crimes, and given hope to families who had almost lost it. And all it took was a dog who refused to ignore what he felt. The next few days were peaceful again. The news eventually moved on to other stories, but in Clearwater, people still talked about Rex. Children pointed excitedly whenever they saw him on patrol, shouting, That's the hero dog. The bus driver always smiled when she saw him in the mornings, giving him a small wave before driving off. Mark started getting letters from nearby towns, thank you notes from parents, police departments, and even rescue centers. One letter came from a mother in another state whose daughter had been found because of the evidence Rex discovered. She wrote, You don't know me, but your dog brought my child home. Please tell him thank you from a mother who will never forget. Mark kept that letter in his desk drawer, right next to Rex's training certificate. Whenever he felt tired or discouraged, he would read it and remember why their work mattered. Months later, Rex was officially honored by the state police. The governor's office invited Mark and Rex to a larger event in the capital. The ceremony was formal, but Mark kept it simple. When he spoke on stage, he said, "Rex didn't do this for awards. He did it because that's who he is, a loyal partner, a friend, and a protector. I'm just the one lucky enough to walk beside him." After the applause died down, he looked down at Rex and whispered, "We did it, buddy." Years would pass, and people in Clearwater would still tell the story of the canine dog who stopped a man from boarding a school bus, and how that moment changed everything. Teachers would share it with new students every year, reminding them about courage, instinct, and doing what's right even when others don't see the danger. As for Rex and Mark, they continued their service side by side. They patrolled quiet streets, responded to calls, and trained younger officers who admired their bond. But every once in a while, Mark would catch Rex staring at the yellow school bus as it stopped to pick up children. His ears would perk up and his eyes would stay fixed on the kids as they climbed in, safe and happy. And Mark always smiled, knowing that his partner was still watching over them, even years later. Because for Rex, the job was never about medals or fame. It was about that simple, silent promise he made every morning, to protect the innocent, to stay alert, and to trust his instincts. And for Clearwater, that promise meant peace. It meant safety. It meant that sometimes the greatest heroes don't speak at all. They simply bark at the right moment and change the world forever.